Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast, where we help people to combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Trevor Blake. Trevor is a physicist by background who grew up extremely poor and bullied. Eventually, he tapped into the workings of energy, consciousness, and transformation, in particular, the science behind it, and began creating through intentionality. Over the last 10 years, Trevor has created and successfully exited 3 separate companies for over 600 million and has never hired a single employee. Trevor is also an author of 2 books, Secret to Successful Startup and The 3 Simple Steps. Now he's helping people to tap into their practical magic and become real world wizards. So please welcome to the show, Trevor Blake. Trevor, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Well, you create real life wizards. That's interesting. This isn't going to be Harry Potter, right?
No. Magic's not mystical. Magic is scientific. So, it's a conversion of one form of energy into another form within the laws of nature, which is what I do with businesses. A winning idea into a company and then exit into cash, then back into another company. That's magic in process,
Yeah. And that's always a good strategy to have the cash, come in. So, well, tell us more about you and how you got to where you are, because it's interesting. Your background is very transformational. So tell us about that, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I can actually say the book saved my life because, as you said in the intro, I grew up, by the definition as poverty, very poor. My father was unemployed and unemployable my whole life. My mother was dying of cancer my whole life. So we lived on welfare in the UK, which isn't the same level of welfare as you would get in the US, believe me. So it was pretty poor. And also I was we got evicted from our house and we escaped to this old farmhouse, but we were in a place where the English were detested at that time.
Oh, wow.
And so I suffered a lot of bullying because, with my accent coming from Liverpool, it was like a big target on my back. And I was a gingerhead, angry young man. So I used to fight and not win very many because I'm not that big. And so I ended up just hiding in the public library. And that's where I started reading all these books just to kill time until the bullies went home for their dinner. And I started reading all these amazing biographies of people who had even worse circumstances when they started, like Madam C.J. Walker and all that, and I thought that, wow, if they could overcome all of those issues that made mine seem trivial by comparison and become these incredible heroes in history, then it gave me a bit of confidence that if they can do it, I can do it. And that's really all I did. And so I can't claim any kind of genius for what I've done in my life. I've just copied what other people did who went before me. And maybe that's smart, I don't know. That's primarily what I did. So eventually, I had a great career, but after I got to the point where I thought, I want to do my own thing. So I started my first company when I was 43, and I'm on my 7th now, actually. So wow. I'm running 4 at the same time.
Okay. And that's what's interesting, because that idea of, there's some adversity there, but that's what builds us stronger. You not only got stronger through the wisdom of the books and what those people did, and then you took that action of the things you learned. And I think that's a great lesson for people to realize, even though things may be tough, we can get through it. We can find ways to find something that interests us to grow. And you, like you said, you found all these biographies, and there's so many people that have gone through many things that, wow, I wouldn't even dream of wanting to do that, or even if it was thrust upon me, it'd be very, very hard. So.
Yeah, I think it would be hard for me to have developed the determination required to overcome adversity without having adversity myself. I think it does help to an extent. You don't need to have it.
No,
there's that lovely saying of, experience is the thing that's happening to me. I wish to God was happening to someone else.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have adversity, but I think it can give you that inner strength for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because you talk about experience of anger to make a change. I like that line because it's like double-edged. You don't necessarily need anger, but it sure fires that attitude to get things done. Did that help you, or have you seen that help others?
Yeah, I think if I have any kind of secret to my businesses, that's the secret, because I figured out when I decided to become my own boss, I was thinking, okay, what am I good at? And it was a shock to find out I'm not really very good at anything. I was in a sales and marketing career, and pretty much anyone can do that. My apologies to all sales and marketing people, but I think anyone can do it, right? And then I thought, okay, what am I? What skills do I have? And my wife wouldn't even let me near a toolbox, so I didn't have any particular skills. And it was a bit of a shock to me. And then so I started to think differently, and I started to realize that there was a lot in life that I wouldn't say made me angry, but got under my skin.
Mhm.
And in my career, I'd seen a few things where I'd had a big row with my boss about something. And of course, that's a stupid thing to do. You're never going to win that. And nothing ever changed. And so I started to look at things to fix. That's where I put my anger in business. So when I saw something that needs fixing, I thought, okay, we'll stop whining on about it, stop complaining, go fix it. And that's what I did in my first company. As there was a problem in the company, I presented maybe 3 different proposals to solve this problem. I got kind of laughed out of the room because I was a junior guy, you know. And so in the end, I went back to the CEO and said, look, I'll do it myself. Give me the rights. I'll go and do it. And he said that you can't do it. You're not smart enough. You're not experienced enough. You don't know finance. You can't. It's impossible. But they needed the money, so they would let me get the rights anyway. And off I went and did it. And it was successful. That was my first company, Qual Medical. I started it with $200 and sold it about 5 years later for 105.5 million. So by our definition of success, that's a success.
Yeah.
And I realized that I'd stumbled upon a really cool startup business model. And so I just kept repeating it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I've pretty much done the same thing 7 times. And that's what's in Secrets to a Successful Starter. It's that business model and why it's an idea whose time has come. So pretty much it gives anyone confidence to say, you know what, you can just follow the same steps. It's like steps across a pond that I've put in that book. Just follow the same steps and you can find something to fix. Go fix it and you'll be an entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah, it's always interesting. I find it interesting when people say, well, what do I do? Well, find the thing nobody wants to do and do that, because that can lead to, you know, a lot of money, a lot of cash flow, good businesses. It always amazes me when you see the trucks going down the road with porta potties. Yeah, it's a crappy job, but I guarantee you they're making some money, because who wants to do that?
Yeah, where I live, you know, people don't even want to pick up after the dogs. So there's actually companies here that go around to people's houses and scoop.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that could be a business, but it's a big business here, you know?
Yeah. It's crazy. People don't want to do that. It's like, your yard can't be that big, but okay. Well, it's I find it interesting too, because you say understanding yourself to consciously create your life. That's pretty cool. So how did all this meld into your, if you will, your personal understanding for your growth?
Well, I think it's a little bit of my scientific bent. I like to know how things work.
Okay.
So when I stumbled across these things in the biographies and they worked, it wasn't enough for me to say, okay, I'll just do it. I did just do it. And then I saw these miracles show up in my life at a very young age. I was an average student. And then by following these steps that are in 3 simple steps, by following those steps, I became the best student in the school. And suddenly girls, I thought I had 2 heads because girls completely ignored me, but now suddenly girls are interested. Everything changed dramatically in the things that were important to me at that age. You know, girls getting out of school. And I remember going to the career counselor and she said, you know, this is how she saw me. And she offered me a job as an apprentice manager at a chicken packing factory. That's how she saw me. Okay. And I said to her, I'm not doing that. I'm joining the military. And she said, oh, that's good. Get some travel. And I said, no, I'm going to the military academy. I'm going to be an officer in the Royal Navy. And she laughed at me. She couldn't control herself. And she's the career counselor.
Yeah.
She laughed in my face, you know. And so I realized that what I started to do in my life had given me this confidence, this self-confidence to do anything. But then I wanted to know, how does it work? So that's when really physics came into my life. And I realized that the whole of the universe is made of energy. We're all energy. And if I can understand how to play with energy in a slightly different way, I can get better outcomes. And that's really what I teach in my courses at trevorgblake.com and in 3 simple steps and Secrets to a Successful Startup. They have to be kind of merged a little bit together, because I think it's hard to reinvent yourself.
Right.
Or hard to start a company as an entrepreneur without reinventing yourself in some way. So if we understand how we work as energy, and then we play with a few clever little tools with energy that's around us, then we get these incredible things happen in our lives. So that's really where I'm at right now. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here, because no one's talking about it. And yet when I get together with other successful entrepreneurs, we don't talk about business or money or anything. No. We talk about physics. You know, we just talk metaphysics. That's our fascination. And I realized that, you know what, with all once successful entrepreneurs have this inside them, but nobody's really talking about it. So I've kind of come out of the closet. I'm probably one of the first entrepreneurs to say, hey, I love playing with energy, you know?
And that's what people, it seems like they overlook a lot of that. If you, like you said, that idea of metaphysics is is dealing with energy and what's around you. So many times we get so focused on the day-to-day grind. You're doing this, you don't see anything. How can how are you helping people to open up that viewpoint? Is it, is it taking them through the process that you're talking about in your books and so forth? How does that help them transform?
Going through, so you're right. So Bob, so going through that process makes people step back and observe more objectively instead of getting caught up in the emotion,
right?
And the personal aspect of everything. And so when we do that, that's the foundation of magic. I love using the word magic because it surprises people from a pragmatic businessman. But the foundation of magic is the ability to make objective observation, to step back, to assess it, and then make a decision that's in the highest good for all. And most people don't do that. They're like you're saying, they're in the woods. Yeah. And sometimes you have to step back and see it all. So, and you think, oh, so that's what it looks like. And then you change your opinion of it, and you change your approach to it. It's really very, very simple, but it's something that isn't taught in school. We don't learn it in the corporate hierarchy. We're taught in a different way, like analyze things until you're paralyzed,
Yeah.
and don't use your intuition because it doesn't count, And so I'm the opposite, and that's why I've never had an employee in all my companies. I've got a business structure that works beautifully, but also I trust myself to make intuitive decisions for the better good of all. And so it works for me, but only if you know how to play the game. And that's why I wrote 3 Simple Steps and Secrets to a Successful Startup. They're both very easy reads, 2 hours on a plane, and you've got it. You kind of, aha. So you start to observe the world a little differently. Right. You start to become aware of your own thoughts and your own words, which can trip us up without us realizing all the time. Yes. You kind of catch yourself and you think, hang on, that's not going to help me. I'll change my perspective. A good easy example is like debt. So let's say you get your credit card balance online or in the mail, and your immediate reaction, and I know how this feels because I used to have terrible debt. And so you look at it and you go, what the hell have I done? How am I in such a mess? How am I going to get out? And you kind of want to do this. Yeah. And so when most people do, and all that does is send the same thoughts into the universe that are energy, they convert, and you get more reason to feel the same. So you get more debt and more debt. You get into a spiral, downward spiral, which I call quicksand. So if you're aware of that process, when you do that, and that's fine, you can't help it, you stop yourself and you sit back and you say, when I'm financially independent, I'll go to my liquor store, buy a bottle of champagne for cash and share it with my friends. And just by doing that, 15-second change of reaction, it changes everything. All kinds of miracles start showing up.
And that's what's nice, is that quick perspective that we can pivot of what we're currently doing to make not only ourselves feel better, but realize there's hope. That idea of, future option or future hope, that gives you energy right there, because it's just, wow, okay, wait a second, I got an option. This hole isn't closing in on me. There's an option to get out of this, and I'll get there.
I can add to that, Bob, because I believe that history will look back at this period of time and say there's never been a better time to reinvent yourself and achieve rapid financial independence. I'm seeing it almost weekly now, where somebody comes up with an idea one day and 18 months later they've sold it for 500 million, like mirror.com. There's never been a better opportunity, but most people are missing it because they're still thinking in the old sort of hierarchical, linear, methodical way. And so I think this is the best time. So I see nothing but hope. And in one of my courses, I have an 87-year-old ex-professor of economics from North Carolina University who just started his first company, 87 years old. And wow. he says to me in the communication, this is the best time of my life. And he's 87, right? So it's never too late to get the bug, and decide to be your own boss.
And that's always a great thing. I mean, that you talk about a narrow, if you will, perspective of, if you will, a career. I mean, economics professor, he's probably that for a long time. And then, wow, all of a sudden here's these options. And that's great to see that, realizing too, that there's always an option. There's always time. I mean, time will always go by. What are you going to do to make it the best time you have? I think that's critical for people.
I agree. I totally agree. And there's never a better time than right now. I mean, I'm running 4 companies at the same time, and people step back and go, how can you do that? And I say, we have technology, folks.
I know. Yeah, exactly. If nothing, this pandemic has showed us how well the technology works for these things. I mean, look what we're doing now. We're, in different spots of the world. Yeah, we can communicate like we're sitting in the same room.
Well, when I started my first company, it was dial-up internet, and it took me a whole day to register a limited liability company because I kept losing. It kept going, cutting out and everything. I couldn't imagine that just a few years from now, because that's only 2003, so it's not even 2 decades yet, that this would be possible.
Yeah, it's the way technology grows. It can be beneficial, but you've got to learn to limit it. And I think that's part of all this scenario too, is we learn all this energies around us, but we also need to take and realize that not doing something once in a while is a good thing. How do you fit that in there?
So I'm glad you brought that up, and I don't know whether that was unconsciously or not. But so on trevorgblake.com, which is where everything is for me, there's a free download, no strings attached, because I did it for the COVID period, because I saw this tsunami of people moving out of the indoctrination of the corporate hierarchy to working from home with no support, no training, no idea what that's like, or how easy it is to get burned out at home because so much time in the corporate office is wasted. And so I wrote a short course which is available for free to everybody. It's really popular. It's called The Practical Magic. I just love that word, of course. Practical Magic of the 5-hour workday, because I've never worked more than 5 hours a day ever in my whole career, both the regular fast track career and then in my companies. And the reason is, it's not clever to only work 5 hours. And I'm not saying sit at your desk for 5 hours. The reason is that scientifically it's shown we can't concentrate for more than 2 hours, and then we get diminishing returns, even though we fool ourselves into thinking we're in the zone. And also that we're at our most creative when our brains are tired, which is the opposite of the way most people think. And so if you know that, and that's what you can get from that free course, if you know that, then you structure your day. So you do like a 2-hour solid work period, and then you go for a walk in the woods for a couple of hours, where the magic happens, where you get those aha moments and you think, why didn't I think of that 2 hours ago? And so when you mix your day like that, you end up with what I call peak brain performance. And so several things happen. One is you become highly productive, very efficient, very effective. But secondly, you get to keep your marriage. You got the balance right. Okay. So I know a lot of people who work 15, 16 hour days, and they're on their third marriage and they're taking antidepressants. So what's that like?
Yeah, I know. It's no. And that's a great reminder for people too. And I talk about this a lot on a lot of podcasts because it's so true. Living in Florida, I have the opportunity to go outside and see greenery and sunshine, all year round most of the time. And you need to step out and get away from the blue screen, get away from the paperwork, whatever it is, and just breathe, listen to the birds, hear the wind, hear that. And like you said, it definitely, your mind, your stress just gets alleviated because you're able to do that. And it's so critical to be able to set that properly in your life.
Yeah, a lot of people try to fit it in between what I think is important and then these little unimportant things. I treat those downtimes probably more importantly than I treat the productive times. So because that's where I've had all my great ideas. I mean, that's where all that's like, hey, that'd be a good company. That's where those ideas have come from. They haven't come from me sitting at a computer. That's for
right. Sure. That's very true. There's so many of these big companies that, the back of a bar napkin, that's the idea that it came from, right? It's okay. It works. I've listened to a lot of the history documentary things on HBO or on the cable station. And one of them was on Tom Monahan recently. Domino's Pizza. Well, he started that 30-minute guarantee because of a complaint he got about a pizza being soft and the box falling apart and so forth. And that's what allowed him to turn that whole business around, that 30-minute guarantee. And, so there's different things like that come up that, like you said, if your mind's not right, you can't see that.
Oh, and that's why the 5-hour workday becomes so important. People love it because they never realized they had that much potential in themselves, but they realized that they did, but they were kind of messing it up because they were spending so much time just trying to work. And one of my favorite stories is Richard Branson, when he started Virgin Airlines, because he never wanted an airline company. Never even thought of it. But his motivation was probably sex, because he was going to see his girlfriend on a Caribbean island.
Right.
And his flight got cancelled, and he's panicking, thinking that she's going to think she's been jilted. No way to phone in those days.
Right.
So he has to come up with solutions. So he's walking through. He's not panicking, but he's walking through the airport, and just like that, he gets the idea. So he didn't get the idea sitting down saying, how am I going to start an airline? He got that idea saying, that he saw a plane charter, and he says, well, how do I charter a plane? And the fella says, well, just give us the money. So he got a plane, and then he thought, well, I can't afford it. Went back through the terminal and sold all the seats to the passengers whose flight had been cancelled. I mean, that's genius, but it wouldn't have happened if he'd put his head in his hands and tried to figure out how to get to the Caribbean island. You know, just
Right.
he went for a walk to the terminal, and then, you know, Virgin Airlines is born out of that. I think that's a lovely story.
I love that too. And you look at the steps in that. It's like all of a sudden that aha moment of, oh, how do I do that? And then, okay, you know, the question always comes up. People say, you know, they'll start demeaning it right away. Well, how am I going to pay for that? How am I going to afford it? What? And as I heard on another podcast guest that I'll have coming out in a couple of weeks, sometimes you need to put that question off and save it for later. He didn't ask, how am I going to, you know, he may have asked, how am I going to do this? And he went back to the people and he had the guts to just say, hey, you want to do this? You want to get in on this? You want to come here with me? He had the you know, the guts to ask that. And it's not, he didn't focus on how am I going to do it or how am I to afford it, but action and that positive motion.
I mean, I've never, in my businesses, I've never had a clue how I'm going to do it. I've been totally unqualified for everything I've got involved in, and including today. And but I do know that we're very smart as humans. We can figure stuff out. But what I try to teach people to do is to set the intention, which is the outcome that you want, and then let life fill in the details. Just start. And that's the best bit of business advice I ever got by the guy that built Amgen and IQOS, like $120 billion worth of enterprise value. And I was showing off about my idea, you know, which is rather silly of me, and he put his hand up and he says, Trevor, you don't know what business you're in until you get into the business. Just start. And that was the guy who, you know, he was like the Bill Gates of the biotech industry telling me that. So I think there's a lot of truth in that. You just start, you will figure it out, but set your intention as to, this is the outcome I want for this before you even start, and then just let life do the rest for you.
And that you just saying that, you take the stress out of it. You know,
Yes,
you know, it's what a concept. You can do this without stress. Oh, really? That's something. Well, one of the other things you talk about too is your worth. And you say your worth, it's your worth. You're not just worthy. I'm sorry. You're not just worthy of good things happening. You're worthy of amazing things happening. I love that. And you talked about that right there. Set that huge intention you want. Can you explain that further?
Yeah, it takes, so an intention is very different to goal setting. It's something massive that makes your stomach churn over with excitement, but it's so big you wouldn't dare tell anybody because you'd be embarrassed. So it's that big. Okay, so you set this amazing, like my first intention for with my first company was, and this gets complicated because we have to understand the science behind it. So the time's an illusion. So that gives us a huge opportunity, a huge competitive edge, because we can crush time in our minds. Mm-hmm. The brain can't tell the difference between what's real and imagined. That's a huge clue to help us. So if we just imagine success, it's going to happen anyway, has to show up. And so what we do is we set this amazing thing. So my first intention for my first company was, I have sold my company for at least $100 million. And that was before I even got the rights to it. That was before I talked to an investor. That was before I even thought about, what am I doing? I'm a crazy guy. And the reason I did that, that's what I learned from the biographies. That's what they all did. That's what Henry Ford did. That's what they all did. They just had this amazing high thing. I'm going to do this. And it's ridiculously far from where they are, you know, but they just, I'm going to do it. And so when you set that intention, it fills you with, it does all kinds of things to your neural pathways, but it fills you with this sense of awe and flow, and it elevates your energy to your frequency to a much higher level. And so you suddenly, your confidence goes up. And in all the scientific studies I've read, the number one secret to success in business is self-confidence. Right. You don't need a connection. You don't need a network. You don't need capital. You don't need anything. They'll come on their own. They'll come by themselves. You need self-confidence. And a tendency to set large targets. Those are the two things that I've ever discovered on any study that was worth reading about.
Right.
And so what that does is, if you set this intention, and even though you think you're crazy and you feel like a fraud at first, you privately go to your bathroom and you talk to yourself in the mirror and you write yourself little notes and all this kind of stuff. Eventually, you fake it enough to the point where you become it. And that's because the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So it's a magical process. It's scientific, but it's, you know, once you get into it, you realize that, my goodness, I could do anything.
Yeah.
If I want to.
Well, and that's what's interesting, because like you said, you start seeing and believing these actions you take or want to take. We do the same thing with fear. We can't tell our future, but we put these thoughts and ideas into our head of what could happen. The realization of it actually happening is probably nothing, 1%, if that. And we put that in the forefront, put the positive into the forefront. That's a great part is that's what you're helping people to do is, yeah, go after the positive things, not the fearful things, but the positive things in our life, the great, great things that you do.
I tell people not to beat yourself up for for having negative thoughts, because it's a survival mechanism. It's in our DNA. There's nothing wrong with that, Bob. There's nothing wrong with saying, of suddenly I'm second guessing all the time. I have doubts. I question myself all the time. But it's catching yourself doing it.
Yes.
And then stop and then react differently, because you can't. There's no such thing as positive thinking, because these thoughts happen in 500 milliseconds. It's crazy. Yeah. And you don't always want to be positive. If you're being chased by a bear, you don't want to say, "Oh, there's a pretty looking bear." Yeah, you want to get the hell out and run like mad. Oh, you're not supposed to run, are you? I don't know.
I don't know. I'd be on your side. I'd be the fastest runner there. I just got to be faster than the next guy.
Yeah, that's right. All that training and survival. You think, I'm out.
Yeah.
So that's okay to have those thoughts. They can be handy and they can help you survive. But then when you catch yourself and you say, okay, that's not going to help me thinking that way, and then you react differently. Yeah, you're not trying to become a Mother Teresa. You're just every now and again catching yourself and changing, reacting differently. That makes all the difference.
And that's a progressive learning too. I often tell people they'll enter me, as an encouragement engineer, it's like, well, are you always positive? No, stuff happens to me too. I'll cut my hand, I'll stub my toe, hurt myself doing something. And, it happens. And yeah, like you said, catch yourself. Okay. I look at it this way. Am I alive? Yeah. Okay. We're good. All else is relative, I can put a Band-Aid on a cut. So, I'm not in a box today, so this is a good thing. Well, one of the other things you talk about too is seeing all the possibilities around you and getting out of the quicksand. I love that phrase, getting out of the quicksand. We talked about it a little bit because you don't want things closing in on you. How can you give us a couple things of how people can start to see more possibilities?
Yeah, the challenge with quicksand is it's very warm and gooey, and it feels so nice to be in it. It feels safe. And you find yourself in this quicksand with a bunch of people who are very much like you at this point in time saying, oh, isn't it nice here? Yeah. And you yourself, this is what happened to me when I was a kid. I didn't want to turn out like my father. Right. But I could have done, because he turned out like his father, and it was a comfortable life, living off welfare and sitting reading books all day. Right. My dad wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a drunk or anything like that. He just gave up on life. He just wanted to sit at home, read library books. It's actually quite a nice life. But I didn't want that for myself. But what's interesting is the minute you say, okay, look, I'm getting out of here. I've wallowed in this quicksand, this porridge enough. Thanks very much. I'm going to get out. Is that, you think that everyone's going to say, oh, good for you. Great ambition. We're proud of you. Off you go. We'll support you all the way. The absolute opposite happens. And that, happened in the biographies I read, but it also happened in my life. And all of a sudden, everyone around you is looking at you differently, and they're saying, who the hell are you? Who do you think you are? You can't do that. And why would you think you're better than us? And even if they don't say it, but it's not always malicious. I can remember, my mum, out of pure love, would think, well, I hope he's not getting too big for his britches. I hope he's not going to make a fool of himself. I hope he's not going to, pride goes before a fall. Because out of love, they want to protect you. And so you have all of these thoughts, all of this energy around you that makes it really hard to get out of the quicksand. And so you need tools and techniques. And that really is where 3 Simple Steps, my first book, comes into play. It's a New York Times bestseller, but I've never promoted it. It's done it all by itself. It's by referral. I just wrote it and put it out there, and it's in 6 languages now. And people get that, and they realize that, okay, I really do want to make something of my life. And you're telling me this is probably going to happen, in which case the easiest thing in the world would be to say, don't do anything, stay where you are. So I provide tools and techniques to help you make those first steps, and don't look back, and get far enough away whereby you think, oh, this is good. Okay, yeah. I'll keep going. But the tools and techniques are really important, and it's all about mentality control, as I call it. It's about protecting yourself from the thoughts and the opinions of those around you, because where you are right now is probably we're all a product of the environment, of the thoughts and opinions of ourselves, but also everybody around us, and it can hold you in quicksand. Or you break out, you end up surrounding yourself with different types of people, different thoughts.
And I always remind people of that too. Speaking, it's like, why the rear view mirror in your car is so small, right? So you reference it. You're not driving looking at that. You have a windshield that's 40 times bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason. Look forward, look at the opportunities coming. Great explanation with that really helps. It's, you don't want to get, I always think of the couch as, okay, it's comfy, but you don't want to be there a long time.
Well, to be honest, there's so much of the world to see and do, so much travel to be had, and so much excitement that you're not going to get on the couch. I mean, you can, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can watch it through your TV and watch other people having a great time. But it's just it takes the same amount of energy for you to have the great time.
Yeah.
It doesn't take more energy, it just takes a little bit of smarts, a little bit of understanding.
Awesome. Great. It was interesting to mention in your bio, you never employed anyone and never worked more than 5 hours a day. And that's so, like you said, you explained that very well. Just to touch more on, a little bit more on that, because I'm sure people are intrigued when they say, wait, work only 5 hours a day. Explain that one more time, just so I want to make sure people are understanding this properly. For, you still work, it's just focused energy.
I don't think of work as work. I mean, it's fun for me, but it only becomes that way when you get it sort of figured out in your head. The no employee is very important to the 5 hour workday. Okay, it's very important, because I look back at my regular career, fast track career as they called it, and I realized that I spent 75% of my time sitting in a meeting room talking about how to keep employees happy. We didn't talk about the customer and customer satisfaction. We didn't talk about upgrading the product or any of those things. It was about, should we give them a snow day tomorrow? The nutty stuff. I can remember being in a room with 10 senior executives and we spent the whole day talking about that. And I was as good at that as I could BS as good as anybody. So I had an opinion, because I was asked for one, so I had an opinion. So it's crazy, madness. But what a lot of people do is when they start a company, they're sort of indoctrinated into that way of thinking that, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I've had a career, let's say in my case, sales and marketing. So I don't know finance, and I don't know manufacturing, I don't know distribution. So I'm going to hire ahead of all of these places and get ahead of software, ahead of hardware engineering, all these and you do all that hiring. And that's a bit like buying a new house and then hiring a full-time handy person to live in a spare bedroom just in case something goes wrong. Right. Because a startup, everyone's busy for 2 weeks, and then after that, everyone's on the internet, because it takes time to get the stuff going.
Yeah.
And then of course, cash flow is an issue, and everybody starts complaining because they're not getting paid and all the rest, and it becomes an ugly experience for the entrepreneur, especially the first-time entrepreneur. So if you go into the mindset of, you don't actually need to hire an expert of everything straight away, there will become a time when you need to hire people. That's when I usually exit my companies, because I like working the way I work. So you give yourself the confidence that I can go and attend some seminars where all the regulatory people go to, and I can go to where the manufacturers go, and I can go to where the distributors go, and I can be around those people for a few days, and I can pick up the key issues, and I can learn enough of the jargon and the lingo in order for me to go out and find a vendor who can do that job for me for a few hours a week. And that way, it's only going to cost me a few $100s that way. And so you run the company as a hub model. The advantage being that they know what they're doing, because that's their job. That's what they provide. So you don't have to handhold, you don't have to train, you don't have to supervise. So you have more of a trust relationship with them. And that frees you up as an entrepreneur. Instead of spending all your time in update meetings and what are you going to do meetings and all that nonsense, it frees you up to focus on how quickly can I grow my company.
Yeah.
That's basically it. That's what I spend my time thinking about. And I did it the first time because I couldn't afford to do it any other way. I didn't have the money to hire people. And then I suddenly woke up 2 years later and realized my net profits were 76%. And I didn't need any more convincing. This is a damn good business model. And everyone I talked to, including all the investors in the future. So I started off with just a few $100,000, but 3 years later, I raised 28 million in less than 6 weeks on this business model to go and buy the rights to 3 more products. And every single one of the investors that invested said, you won't be able to keep this going much longer. You need to hire people. You need to hire people. You need an office. We need to have a place where we can meet. And I'm an obdurate guy. So I said, no. And then we sold the company for 105.5 million. And the investors said, well, that was good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what are we doing next?
Yeah,
but you have to expect that pushback, because it's not a way of thinking and a way of working people are used to, but it's magic when you get it right. Secrets to a Successful Startup just shows you how to get that structure right from day one. And I'm not, at some point for different industries, it might be months down the line. For others, it's years. For me, it's never. There might be a point of where you need to hire people, and that's fine.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that, because that does help. You want to see that growth, and like you said, that profit margin, when you see that rising, that's a good scenario for any business. So, well, Trevor, if you can tell us your website, where people can find out more about you. Obviously your books, I'm assuming they're on Amazon as well. Tell us about that.
They're everywhere. I mean, that book is a typical example of one of my companies. I mean, I put the intention into it. I said goodbye, Mr. Book, off you go, and book's done all the work. And so that's the starting point. So just go to trevorgblake.com and you can hit all the Amazon and Barnes and Noble links and all the rest of it, and get 3 simple steps. I think it's only $9. I don't make any money out of it. All my proceeds go to cancer research and development. So I'm doing this for a number of reasons. I'm not just doing it for charity or anything like that. I'm doing it because in this process, I also get to see the cool guys who are working on the new technology, and I get the chance to invest right at the start of some of these amazing ideas, because this is the world we're living in right now. So it's not, I could kid you and say I'm just doing this for your benefit. I'm not. I'm doing it for my benefit too. That's what life is like. So go to trevorgblake.com and you can get access to the books and my 2 courses, Transformation and Secrets to a Successful Startup, and the life as you know it is gone.
Wow. That's a great idea, and people check out his website. He's got a lot of information on there. The books, I'm definitely gonna get my copies of those, so I have those. Trevor, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for being a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast today. I really appreciate your insight and the opportunities you're offering people, the hope. Keep that up, because that's a great thing that you're showing people. I mean, there's an outlet here, people. It's not just doldrum and blah. We have options. We have your ideas offer hope. So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. So thanks for having me on the show, Bob. I appreciate it, and great questions too. So thanks.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. You make sure you have a great day today.
I will.
All right.